the master of the varsity lingo, as well as the next president of the United States, Governor Mitt Romney.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind. It is good to be at the varsity. Thank you. Thank you. Please. It's good to be actually at the varsity. I have to tell a little story. I was with Fred Cooper and Eric Tannenblatt. I don't think the speaker was there with me at the time, but we were at some fancy club, some big fancy club, having this very delicious meal with not a glorified steak, but a real steak. It was a tenderloin or something like that, and enjoying the meal. And I don't know whether it was Eric turned to me and said, "What's your favorite meat?" And I said, "Hot dog. That's my favorite meat." And I think it was Jamie Reynolds who said, they have great hot dogs at the varsity. I hadn't heard of the varsity at the time. And I said, "Oh, that's nice to hear." Well, we finished with our meal and our dessert and got absolutely full. And in came a bag of hot dogs from the varsity. So my after dinner dessert was a hot dog. It was a yellow dog. It was delicious. But I must admit, they're better as your main course than they are as your after dinner event. And it was great to finally be here today and to enjoy that. This has been an exciting time for me. I was at the Citadel in South Carolina not long ago, speaking to the cadets there, and it's very different than this crowd. They were all very serious, sitting at attention. It's hard to sit at attention, but they were doing it if anyone could. And I was talking to them. I told a couple funny stories, I thought. They didn't laugh, they just sat there and smiled. And I went on with my speech, and at the end there were questions and answers. And most of the questions were read off of cue cards they prepared. One guy stood up and said, "Governor Romney, what do you think about Johnny Damon having been traded from the Red Sox to the Yankees?" And I said, "Well, it proves only one thing: we all hate Yankees." And so I come here as a Yankee governor, but with Southern values, and it's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your generous introduction, and thank you for your welcome. This is an interesting time. This is an interesting time for our country. I think over the history of American life, there have been times that are more critical than others. I think this is one of the most critical times in our history. The historians suggest that there are inflection points in American history where the change of our course has been noted. Obviously, the Revolutionary War would be one of those times when those who founded this country reversed the relationship between the state and the citizen. Prior to that time, the king was the sovereign and the citizens were the servants, if you will. And the Declaration flipped that. It said, no, the citizen is the sovereign and the state, that is the servant. And that changed the course of history of this country, made us a nation of freedom and opportunity, put the person first. And then, of course, the turn of the century from the 1800s to the 1900s, we went from largely an agricultural society to an industrial age, another change in our trajectory as a nation. I think we're going through another similar change of that nature right now, which is caused by several events all coming at one time that are affecting us. One is the massive overspending in Washington, the overuse of our oil, the failure of so many of our schools to help kids in the inner city get the jobs of tomorrow, so many of our health care problems being associated with people who don't have insurance. Getting them insured is a challenge, a problem. Our immigration laws aren't being followed. So we have problems of a domestic nature. Then we have international problems or challenges. Asia. It's wonderful. They're coming out of poverty in places like China and India, but it represents a new challenge for us. And perhaps the greatest threat, the threat of radical, violent jihad. These people who would cause the collapse of all nations, really, moderate Muslim states as well as our nation and other nations. And so we face some extraordinary challenges, and I believe you're going to see a change in course for America. And the question is, are we going to turn left with the policies which are represented by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John Edwards, or are we instead going to commit ourselves even more fundamentally to the principles that were the basis of our nation's success? Principles that Ronald Reagan espoused, of strength in our military and our economy and in our values and our homes. Now, I, of course, believe the latter. You can see the difference in perspective as you listen to people talk about different issues. When Hillary Clinton is talking about the economy, if you listen carefully, she's saying she wants to raise taxes on individuals and raise taxes on corporations. She wants to change the relationship between the members of our society. She said we've been an on-your-own society. There's some truth to that, the Adam Smith idea that we have individual initiatives and individual responsibility. We build something with our own hands. The family that started the varsity. Was it your grandfather that started the varsity?
My father.
Your father. I mean, people, that's the nature of America. People go out and seize opportunity. Yes, we're on your own society. She said, time to change that. We want a shared responsibility. We're all in it together society. So it's out with Adam Smith and in with Karl Marx. That's not the right direction for America. We want instead personal responsibility and opportunity. She wants to raise taxes. I want to lower them. You saw John Edwards' savings plan. Did you see that? He says everybody should be able to save $250 tax-free. Whoop-de-doo. I was in Iowa, as you know, last week, and that's. I was pointing out that's not going to get you much of a retirement or a college education, and a guy named Bill Dio in the audience said that's not enough to get John Edwards a haircut. So I have a different plan. My view is make the death tax end forever. No more death tax. Make the tax cuts permanent, and I have another idea, and that is I think people of moderate and middle income ought to have a new tax rate on their savings. And by that I mean the interest they get in their bank account or their dividends or capital gains from their mutual fund, and that interest rate or that tax rate ought to be absolutely zero. People should save their money even for the rest of the future tax-free. Now there are other differences. There are problems in our healthcare system where 45 million people don't have health insurance. That's a problem. We want people to have insurance to get good quality care. And by the way, we don't want the cost of the uninsured being borne by all of us. We want people to pay their own way and to pay to the extent they can. But the Democrats look at that problem and they say, oh, we got to have government take it over. And let me tell you, I don't want the guys who manage the Katrina cleanup running my healthcare system, that's for sure. And I'm not in favor of socialized medicine or Hillary care. Instead, personal responsibility, letting market dynamics work their magic will help make health care more affordable for our citizens and get all of our citizens insured.